today's motorcycling world, we've got sport bikes, we've got cruisers, we've got adventure tours, we've got sport tours. Motorcycling these days have become so regimented in specific segments that we've kind of lost the essence of what riding a bike is all about. And so for this particular shoot, we've got 5 bikes that really condense the pure essence of motorcycling. We've got the Harley Roadster, the Yamaha XSR900, the Triumph Bonneville T120, the Moto Guzzi V9 Roamer, and of course, the Ducati Scrambler Full Throttle Edition. And so what we're gonna do today is not really a test where we're breaking down numbers and going to the dyno and doing a scorecard and all that stuff. We're calling this the Lifestyle Showcase. We're just gonna ride all these bikes and get a feel for just how they perform and, you know, how cool they make us feel, because really, riding motorcycles should make us feel cool, right? So we're gonna go ride and we're gonna tell you how these bikes make us feel.
When I went to the press launch for the Yamaha XSR900 beginning of the year, I came away thinking, hey, it's a cool bike. I gave it a decent review, gave it some, high marks in the scorecard. My initial impression going into it was like, wow, it's a dressed up FZ09, who cares, no big deal. But, kind of proved itself to be more than that. Every stoplight, stop sign is an opportunity just to do this little wheelie right off the line, and just for fun, because it just does it. You don't have to clutch or nothing, just a little bit of throttle. And that type of characteristic in this bike, it just makes me feel like a kid again. It makes me feel like that 22-year-old when I got my first sport bike, and I was just smiley and giggly and just having a blast every time I rode it. This is how this bike makes me feel. It's just so lightweight, so nimble, fun to ride. Like I said, it's just snappy all over the place. It's got a 3-cylinder engine, which kind of differentiates itself from other bikes out there, V-twins, inline 4s. And it's just cool. It's got this nice 70s retro vibe going for it. And there's not anything quite like it out there. And I will keep this in my garage as long as I can.
When it comes to iconic motorcycle brands, perhaps nothing but Triumph could compete with the level of Harley-Davidson. Triumph from England, of course, and the Bonneville, the T120 here, 1200 cc's. The old Bonneville was 650 cc's, now we're up to 1200 cc's. And it's got tons of torque. Really, on the freeway, you want to get past somebody, you just dial on the throttle and it really hauls. But along with the bigger engine, you get a bigger bike and a heavier bike. All in, this bike's about nearly 500 pounds. So if you're used to the old Bonnevilles, this will feel heavy. But if you're used to modern motorcycles and you like 1200 cc's of power, this will make a lot of sense. Still a light steering motorcycle, considering its weight, and it's incredibly neutral ergonomics. The foot pegs are right where your feet fall. The handlebars are really not a reach anywhere. You could really feel you could tour on this thing because it's so comfortable. And the seat is really good too, flat, so you can move up and down, and even has a spot for a passenger. The Bonneville makes me feel, when I ride it, like I am on an English roadster. I want to go up and down some secondary country lanes in England, maybe with a little bit of rain splashing on me. Here in California, we're not getting a lot of that rain, but we do have some wide open spaces to get on it. And when you do get on the throttle on the Bonneville, it really pumps out the power. It's one of the faster bikes here, maybe only falling behind the Yamaha and perhaps the Ducati. The Bonneville reminds me of the old Bonnevilles in that you could do almost anything on it. It's fine for cruising around town, it was okay on the freeway, and in the corners it even has some good stability, and so you can really do anything on this bike, kind of like how bikes were back in the old days when you had one bike to do everything. Style-wise, I think Triumph has really hit it out of the park. Boy, this two-tone paint job, it's a water-cooled now, but you look at the cylinder barrels, that's authentic air-cooled finning there, even though there's a radiator hidden right on the front there. But everything about it, all the finish details are really nice. Even these look like carburetors, but they're not. This looks like an air cleaner. It's not, it just leads to the air box. But really, great attention to detail. Also, coming from England, they often get cold and wet weather. Standard heated grips. The only one of the bunch here with standard heated grips. It's just one of the unique features of the T120 Bonneville.
here we are with the Moto Guzzi V9 Roamer. And look at this thing, it just screams cool, right? I think so anyway. It's got, you know, steel tank, steel fenders, front and rear. You know, you can actually tap on it and hear it. You could put a magnetic tank bag and be good with it. Yeah, this thing just screams cool to me. It's got a really comfortable neutral position, and this engine, if you know anything about Moto Guzzis, this just quirky little transverse V-twin, you know, as it shakes from side to side when you get on the throttle. It's not as refined as a new motorcycle, and that's what's so cool about it. You ride this thing and you're thrown back to a time when motorcycles were far less refined than they are now. And generally speaking, people think refinement in motorcycles is what we should be pushing towards, and that's true. But sometimes a little bit of rough around the edges personality like the Guzzi has here is charming. And that's what I find so cool about the Guzzi is, you know, you're riding it and you're like, yeah, you know, it could be smoother in some parts, it could have better brakes, but it's not like they're bad. You'll stop just fine. You ride this V9 Roamer and you think, yeah, certain parts could be more refined, sure. But I think if that were to happen, you kind of lose the character of this bike, and that's what's so cool. It's an accessory to the enjoyment and not the focal point of the enjoyment. Personally, I just like looking at this bike. I could park it in my driveway and just stare at it and be like, that's a cool motorcycle. And you ride it, and it just has this little V-twin rumble to it, air-cooled V-twin rumble to it that's just really pleasing to the ear, and it's not like Ducatis. It's just its own little thing. And that's what I like about it. I mean, with the V9 engine, it's got way more punch than the V7, but it's not overwhelming. And it just screams fun. It just screams, you know, let's just go for a ride, relax, enjoy the scenery. Here we are riding around in the canyons and stuff, and no, it's not meant for this kind of thing, but you dial back the pace a bit and just let the corners come to you and flow, and you find yourself having a really good time on this Guzzi. It'll corner surprisingly well, but that's not really what it's made for, right? It's made just to cruise, just to ride around, and just enjoy motorcycling, and for that purpose, this does a great job. Power where you want it, style, it just makes you feel good.
Even kids like the bike. Hey guys, what's going on? We're here in beautiful, sunny Venice Beach, California. And what a wonderful place to showcase America's newest iron, Harley-Davidson's Roadster, new for 2016. It's the sportiest thing that Harley-Davidson puts out now. Low bars, good suspension in the front, good suspension in the back. We got dual disc brakes. What does all this mean? This thing hauls and it feels really mean. With the slam bars, which are the lowest and most aggressive things that Harley-Davidson offers in their lineup today, means that you're set in a really aggressive position. This position is great for carving through the canyons, slicing through traffic if you're on your way through the 405 and rush hour traffic like I was this morning, or just cruising down the boulevard. The bike evokes a really strong emotion. I come off of sport bikes and I love what they do for me, and I've owned a Harley-Davidson. I had one in the garage for about 6 months. Didn't care for it then. But I'll tell you what, this bike feels great. It's the sportiest thing they've done. It's the most aggressive. How does it make me feel? It makes me feel like I want to attack traffic. I want to cruise down the boulevard. I want to hit the canyons. Am I going to scrape the pegs when I'm doing it? Yeah, it's still a Harley. But with the dual disc brakes, I can actually stop the bike. The 1200cc punches out a lot of bottom end torque, which gets me 0 to 60 and faster than I really need to be. It's completely American in the way it feels, the rumble, the engine, it just thrums, you turn it on and it just goes da 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 da, and you know you're on something special. As far as a Harley-Davidson goes, would I put this in my garage coming off of a sport bike? Yeah, I would highly consider this. I think anyone who owns a Harley and who rides traditional Harleys, they may find their positioning a little too aggressive for them, but I think if you use your core and you keep your weight off your wrist, I think you're going to be okay. For someone coming off a sport bike, would they want to put this in the garage? Yeah, I think so. Anyone who comes off a sport bike, who has ridden a traditional Harley and has said, nah, not for me, definitely owes it to themselves to get on this bike. It makes me feel awesome when I'm riding it. I'm pleasantly surprised. I would absolutely own this bike. So far, thumbs up.
Really? We're talking about our feelings? Really? That's kind of unusual, isn't it? This is the Ducati Scrambler Full Throttle, it's called. It's got 803cc. I like it. It makes me emotional because when I was getting started playing with Ducatis, they didn't have any liquid-cooled ones yet. They were all air-cooled. So I went through 851, 888, 916, whatever, 1098, whatever, 1299 now. They're all huge beasts that have 160 horsepower, but this one, I traded in a Ducati new HQ in Anaheim a couple days ago. I took back a Multistrada Enduro, and I almost fell off the thing every time I came to a stop because the seat was like this high, and it was so nice to give that thing back to them and get this, which feels like, we haven't put it on the scales yet, but it feels like the lightest bike in this bunch, and it's just so easy to hop onto and zip around town. 803cc air-cooled L-twin. They rated at 75 horsepower, but it feels like a little more than that, maybe because the bike is so light. You know, I think it could appeal to anybody. I think, you know, Italian has always been that flair, that fashion thing, and this seems like a pretty fashionable little bike to me. Some of the graphics kind of go back to some classic old Ducatis and the fat tires kind of give it that gnarly Paris-Dakar look, even though that's not what it's about, but you could go down some dirt roads on here. I think it's a really good do-it-all bike for a person who wants something a little bit different, maybe. Reasonably priced, probably relatively easy to keep for a Ducati, inexpensive, $10,495.
All right, fellas, we've just wrapped up a day here riding all 5 of these bikes, and you know, we're looking at this from the perspective of let's take a step back and not charge like we do with, say, sport bikes, you know? And I gotta ask, what do you all think of what we got here? Kevin, let's start with you.
Well, I think we could call this heritage lifestyle characters because each of these bikes banks on some of the heritage of each of the brands, and they're very character rich. So the Triumph Bonneville, it's like a Triumph Bonneville. The Yamaha is interesting because it harkens back to the 70s with that paint scheme, but I tell you, there's nothing retro about the performance of that 3-cylinder engine. If we're looking for performance, the Yamaha really stands out. And then the Guzzi over here, I love this thing. It's not very fast, but it looks great. I think it's the prettiest bike of the bunch. And then the Ducati, maybe the most playful and fun, if not for the Yamaha.
Yeah, you know, we ride all the latest and greatest bikes all the time, but let's jump over to our guest rider here, Ty, who's not always with us for our adventures. Ty, what do you make of these 5 things?
Well, I think each one of these bikes they each appeal to me in a certain way. If I had to pick one bike to put in the garage, it would have to be the Yamaha. If I wanted something that I could split lanes with, if I could twist up in the canyons, if I wanted to cruise the boulevard, this would probably be the bike. I kind of think it's the outlier. It's kind of not necessarily, I think it's the next step up out of all these other bikes. If I took that bike off the shelf, off the table, you know, I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm going to say it, and I said it before in my opening. I would put this Harley-Davidson in my garage. I said it. And here's why. Because when I get on the bike, I know it doesn't go fast. I know it scrapes pegs looking at a corner. The pegs want to fold up and scream. But there's something that's very evocative about this bike. You get on the bike, the aggressive position, the way that you're hunched over, the way the whole thing just vibrates and shakes. You're on a motorcycle and you know you're alive. And that's why I like this motorcycle. And it goes against everything that I've ever said about these bikes. I had a Harley in the garage for about 6 months and it was awful. So I can't believe that I'm saying this, but man, kudos. Great job.
Let's jump over to Tom. Tom, what do you make of these 5?
Well, out of the 5, we have 3 of them that are throwback specials. The Ducati, the Triumph, and the Yamaha are all, like you said, kind of their heritage, specials. The Guzzi and the Harley, these are the same bikes they've been making for the last 50 years. They're kind of like, fuck you, this is what we've been doing all along. So the only thing different is that these guys have come along and sort of elevated their cool level, honestly. And if we take performance out of this, because a lot of times we love a Guzzi, but it might not be the fastest or the quickest revving or have the best brakes or something like that. And this one's kind of like that. But if we're not considering that stuff, this bike wins by far. It's just oozing the most character. It's the one that is, I think, the most stylish. It's got, this really cool style fuel tank. It's got a paint job that will give the Harley a run for its money down there. And yeah, I could love parking this thing in my garage and calling it mine.
Well, speaking of, old bikes that haven't changed much and old things haven't changed much, John, what do you think of the Guzzi and how it's been? And
See that coming
yeah, I had to set it up that way.
Around and
But you remember when that Guzzi was new? What do you think of this one?
I like the Guzzi. I like the Triumph too. The Ty was like a bike salesman there for a while. He talked me into the Harley, almost. I'm like, oh, this makes some good points. They're all
I'm
great.
surprised too.
This thing's good too, but it kind of does feel like a different class of bike. I think it makes a bunch more power than the other ones, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. But the others are kind of like, yeah, I could see any one of these in the garage. I like the Triumph a lot. That thing's got a fantastic seat. I don't know what the foam is, but it's so super. They're all so easy to ride around on, huh? They're just easy to ride. And if you had another bike for the other kind of motorcycling you like to do, maybe you like to go off in the dirt or have a sport bike. For a second bike, one of these would be fantastic just to tool around town on. Or if you live in town and don't want another bike, the Ducati's pretty sporty.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, yeah.
I give full kudos to Triumph for making a new bike look old, but in a good way.
The Triumph has a bunch of really cool bits on it, too.
Yeah.
Really attractive for the money.
At first glance, you'd almost think this was a retro Triumph. When you get up close to it, you're like, holy crap, that's a brand new bike. And I mean that in the best way possible, because the performance is awesome, the styling is great. But I know for me personally, I would go with Tom. That Guzzi just speaks to me in a way that the rest of these bikes don't. Like you said, Tom, take performance out of the equation, and I hop on that Guzzi and I feel cool, which is something that I don't feel very often these days. Yeah, for me personally, I picked the V9 Roamer, but the cool thing about this is I could find things to like about all these bikes. They're just, that cool.
I'm a big fan of the Triumph. I gotta say that the way the thing looks really is special. And really, like you said, you could park it somewhere and you get people walking by going, oh, is that like a 1968 or something? Because they made it look so authentically retro. And the two-tone tank and the power of the motor, it's got about the same power as the Harley, but it feels so much more lively in the Triumph.
It spins up so much faster.
Yeah.
I wish this thing would spin up faster. It is sluggish. And that's the caveat I will say about this bike is it's not the best performing bike, and that's actually why I like it. Because I don't think that, aside from the Yamaha, I would not consider any of these other 3 bikes, or these 4 bikes, as high performance bikes. So if I take that mindset off the table, then I just want something that goes complete opposite. So I want to have my fast canyon track bike in the garage, but I would want something that's so polar opposite that it's like, 2 pairs of shoes, a pair of cleats and a pair of flip-flops, 2 different purposes. And that's why I dig this bike. I do wish that it would spin up like that guy, or any of these, or I wish it was as flickable as the Scrambler, or as light feeling as the Guzzi. I wish it was as stable to the turns as a Triumph, or that it spooled up, that the twin made the same type of power. But it's heavy, it's kind of archaic.
It has that intangible cool factor that
cool factor
you can't put on a piece of paper.
Yeah, exactly. You just kind of go, yeah, I'm not going that fast, but I don't really care.
And it looks badass, right?
It's badass, yeah.
Hey, Ty, my Guzzi will underperform your Harley any day.
Yeah, I believe it.
So all these bikes, this isn't a performance shootout. It's about the way the bikes make you feel. And each of these bikes make us feel slightly different. And for the full elaboration of that, you really got to see the whole story on Motorcycle.com.